My boyfriend of 7 years doesn't want to marry me because I'm an immigrant. The truth is that I earn more money than him, and he can't accept that I, a 29-year-old woman who moved to the United States 7 years ago as a graduate student from Indonesia, am in a better financial position. I met my boyfriend on May 30th, a few months after I moved, and we have been together ever since. My boyfriend is a US citizen. After I graduated, we had a serious discussion about where our relationship was headed. One evening we sat down, the atmosphere was tense but hopeful. I made it very clear that I eventually wanted to get married and have children. It was important to me that we were on the same page about our future. My boyfriend echoed these sentiments, saying he wanted the same things. I remember asking him directly if he saw that happening with me because I didn't want to be in a relationship with no future. He looked me in the eye, told me he loved me, and reassured me that we were definitely headed in that direction. His words made me feel secure, and I believed we were on the same path. As of last week, we have been dating for 7 years. We occasionally talked about marriage, usually during quiet moments on lazy Sundays or while sharing a bottle of wine on special evenings. Despite these conversations, we were both busy with our respective careers, so the timing never seemed quite right to take the next step. He was focused on his teaching, while I was deeply involved in my role at a technology company. Our jobs consumed a lot of our time and energy. However, recently, my company announced that there was a chance my department's work would be outsourced. This news hit me hard, being on a temporary work visa. This development meant I needed to start looking for a new job as soon as possible if I wanted to continue staying in the United States. The uncertainty of my job situation added a layer of stress to my life. I knew I had to act quickly, as losing my job would jeopardize my ability to stay in the country, a place that had become my second home over the past 7 years. Last week, during our anniversary, I brought this up. We were having dinner at our favorite restaurant, celebrating 7 years together. The ambience was perfect, with soft lighting and a quiet corner table that allowed us to talk freely. As we enjoyed our meal, I gathered my courage and asked him if he thought it was the right time to think about getting married, as that would also help with sorting out my visa issues. I tried to present it as a practical solution, intertwining our love and future with the reality of my situation. He looked like he was about to vomit, his face went pale, and he avoided eye contact, staring down at his plate. After much prodding, he finally confessed that he wasn't planning on US getting married before I was able to get a green card as a permanent resident in the United States. His words felt like a punch to the gut. I was incredibly confused and hurt because he had never mentioned this before. The dinner, which was supposed to be a celebration of our love, turned into a tense and painful conversation that left me questioning everything. I was incredibly confused because he had never mentioned this before. His reason was that he didn't want to be used as a visa mule, his words, not mine. He explained that he wanted to make sure I married him because I loved him and not because it was a ticket to staying in the United States, which could only happen once I got a green card. Hearing him say this felt like a slap in the face. It was as if he doubted my love and intentions, despite our 7 years together. It took me a while to process what he said. I sat there stunned, trying to wrap my head around his sudden and shocking admission. The man who had always been my rock now seemed like a stranger, questioning the very foundation of our relationship. Desperately seeking clarity, I asked him if he'd be okay with moving to Indonesia with me if things didn't work out with my visa. His immediate refusal hurt even more. He flat out said he wasn't willing to move, highlighting how different our priorities were. I did not react well. The mix of betrayal, confusion, and hurt was too overwhelming. I felt my eyes well up with tears, and I knew I couldn't sit there any longer. I abruptly got up, mumbled something about needing air, and left the restaurant. I couldn't deal with what had just happened. The evening meant to celebrate our anniversary had turned into a nightmare, leaving me questioning everything about our future. I am still in disbelief. I started dating him because he was the kindest, most thoughtful and generous man I'd ever met. From the very beginning, he was always there for me, whether it was helping me adjust to life in a new country, supporting me through the challenges of grad school, or simply being a loving and caring partner. He made me feel valued and cherished, and I believed we shared a deep and genuine connection. Now I feel like I wasted 7 years. The realization that he doubted my intentions all along is devastating. While the visa issues are certainly a problem, I did not date him with the intention of making him my safety net. I loved him for who he was, not for what he could provide in terms of legal status. It hurts deeply to think that he saw me as someone who might use him just to stay in the United States. I cannot believe that even after nearly a decade together, he doesn't know what kind of person I am. I've always been independent and hardworking, never relying on him financially or otherwise. I thought he understood and appreciated that about me. The fact that he could entertain such doubts after all this time makes me question everything about our relationship. It's a painful realization that, despite all the love and memories we've shared, he never truly understood my character or my intentions. I feel like this relationship is possibly over, and it hurts so much. Update. A few days ago, I made a post about how my boyfriend of 7 years didn't want to marry me because I was an immigrant on a work visa, and he didn't want to be a visa mule. I have been on a work visa for a bit more than 2 years now. Before that, I was on an extended student visa for about 3 years after grad school. Navigating the visa process has been incredibly stressful. I had terrible luck with the work visa lottery, applying each year with increasing anxiety as my eligibility window narrowed. The competition was fierce, and each year I faced the crushing disappointment of not being selected. Finally, in the last round, I was eligible to apply. I got my work visa. The relief was immense, but it had been a nerve-wracking journey up to that point. Securing the visa allowed me to continue my career in the United States, but the process left me constantly aware of the precariousness of my situation. The experience underscored the importance of job stability and the ever-present risk of having to leave the country if things didn't work out. Getting permanent residency in the United States is not easy. I know people who have been here for over 15 years and are still waiting for their residency. For those of you who messaged me calling me a gold digger, you made me laugh. I am aware of the legalities around sponsoring a spouse for permanent residency, including the financial aspect. It shouldn't have been a problem for the following reasons. I am a science major who recently shifted into management. Over the years, I climbed the ranks through hard work and dedication, eventually landing a leadership role. I work for a large company where I manage a team of talented individuals and oversee significant projects. My career has been rewarding both professionally and financially. I do quite well for myself, earning close to $300,000 a year. My boyfriend, on the other hand, is a dedicated teacher. He is passionate about his work and makes a meaningful impact on his students' lives. However, our incomes are not comparable. He earns around $60,000 a year, which is a respectable salary but significantly less than mine. This disparity has never been an issue for me. I have always respected and admired his dedication to education and the positive influence he has on his students. Our different career paths and earnings have never affected my feelings for him or my commitment to our relationship. We have been living together for about 6 years. We have a shared account to pay for expenses like rent and utilities, where we both deposit a percentage of our salaries. The rest of our money goes into our own private accounts, and we do not manage each other's money. Because I am pretty frugal, I have saved up quite a bit of money in the form of savings and investments over the years. I have been careful with my spending, always planning for the future. This financial prudence has paid off, allowing me to build a solid financial cushion. If my boyfriend was worried about the legality of sponsoring me financially for more than 10 years, I would have happily discussed moving the money around to alleviate his concerns. In fact, I was even considering buying a house. We could have made that a joint ownership thing, strengthening our financial partnership and showing my commitment to our future together. The point is, we could have figured it out. There were plenty of options available that would have ensured we were both comfortable and secure. I have not relied on him financially ever, and I did not intend on doing that in the future. I have always been independent and capable of taking care of myself, and I would have continued to do so in our marriage. My financial stability was never in question, and I was ready to work together to address any concerns he had. I might not have considered everything, but you have to note that I thought about the marriage for visa thing only very recently when the threat of possibly having to leave loomed over me. The idea of marrying for a visa had never been a significant part of my plans. My focus had always been on our relationship and building a future together based on love and mutual respect. It was only when my company's announcement about potential outsourcing came up that the reality of my visa situation hit me hard. This sudden threat forced me to consider marriage as a practical solution, but it was never something I had thought about in detail before. My intentions were never to use my boyfriend as a means to secure my stay. The thought only crossed my mind as a desperate measure when faced with the potential upheaval of my life and career. Regarding my situation back home in Indonesia, I come from a very religious and conservative family and had a horrible childhood. My family does not support my career choices. I cut contact with my family when I moved to the United States, so they are not in the picture at all. I was on great terms with my boyfriend's family, they loved me. Now for the actual update, he is now my ex-boyfriend. I took a few days to collect myself and then reached out to him, wanting to talk. During those days, I went through a whirlwind of emotions: confusion, anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. I needed time to process everything, to think clearly about what I wanted to say and how I felt. I spent a lot of time reflecting on our relationship, replaying our conversations, and trying to understand his perspective. When I finally felt ready, I sent him a message asking if we could meet to talk. He agreed, and we arranged to meet at a quiet cafe we used to frequent. Sitting across from him, I could see the strain in his eyes, a reflection of my own turmoil. It was a tense and emotionally charged moment, but I knew we needed to have this conversation to find some clarity and closure. It turns out that he has been insecure about earning less than I did for a while. This revelation hit me hard. He confessed that for quite some time, he had felt inadequate because of the significant difference in our incomes. Apparently, his friends had been poking fun at our relationship, calling me the sugar mommy, because I take care of most of the expenses. They made jokes and comments that undermined his confidence and made him feel less of a man. He never told me this until now. All those times I thought we were fine, he was silently battling these insecurities, feeling embarrassed and belittled by his friends' remarks. It hurt to realize that he had been carrying this burden alone, letting it fester and grow into something that could drive a wedge between us. His silence on the matter meant that I was unaware of his struggles and unable to support him through them, leaving me blindsided by this sudden revelation. Apparently, he did not feel like an equal because our incomes were so different. The disparity in our incomes had been a constant source of discomfort for him, making him feel less valued and inadequate. Over time, these feelings of inequality grew, and he started believing that I was only with him as a quick way to get permanent residency here. I was speechless. I could not believe that his friends had gaslighted him into doubting our relationship. The people he trusted had planted seeds of doubt in his mind, making him question my intentions and the authenticity of our love. It was heartbreaking to realize that their cruel jokes and comments had eroded his trust in me. The idea that he could think I was using him for my own gain, after everything we had shared and built together, was devastating. His friends' influence had poisoned his perception of our relationship, creating a chasm of insecurity and mistrust between us. I reminded him how he had supported me when I was in grad school. Back then, I was struggling financially, trying to make ends meet while focusing on my studies. He was my rock during those tough times. I brought up specific memories, like how he used to get me groceries when I had little money to spare. Every week, he would show up with bags of food, ensuring I had enough to eat and never made me feel like a burden. I reminded him how he allowed me to stay with him rent-free in my last year of grad school. This generous act helped me minimize expenses so I did not have to take out a loan. He knew how much I dreaded the idea of additional debt, and he opened his home to me without hesitation, providing a safe and stable environment where I could focus on my studies. I also brought up how he let me use his car when I was attending interviews. He understood the importance of those opportunities and wanted to ensure I had reliable transportation. He never questioned it or made me feel guilty, he simply handed over the keys, wishing me luck and believing in my potential. These acts of kindness and support were a testament to his love and generosity. I wanted him to remember how we had always been there for each other, how his selflessness had helped me through some of the most challenging times in my life. I hoped that reminding him of these moments would help him see that our relationship was built on genuine love and mutual support, not ulterior motives. I told him that he did those things because he loved me, and my taking on the majority of household expenses since I started working was my way of paying him back for all the things he did for me back then. I explained that I saw it as a way to balance the scales, to show my gratitude and appreciation for all his support during my graduate school years. It was never about making him feel inferior or less capable, it was about showing him that we were a team and that I was just as committed to supporting him as he had been to supporting me. He said that he understood what I was saying, but also that he did not expect me to start earning more than him right off the bat. His voice was filled with a mixture of resignation and frustration. He admitted that while he understood my intentions, the reality of our income disparity still weighed heavily on him. He had envisioned a future where he would be the primary provider, and my rapid career success had caught him off guard. It challenged his expectations and made him feel like he was failing in his role, despite all the ways he contributed to our life together. I could see the pain in his eyes, the struggle between understanding my perspective and dealing with his own insecurities. I asked if there was any chance he would consider going to couples therapy, as some of you had suggested. I thought that maybe with professional help, we could address these deep-seated insecurities and misunderstandings. I hoped therapy might help us communicate better and rebuild the trust that seemed to be slipping away. But he declined firmly, stating that he did not think he was being unreasonable. His tone was resolute, and it was clear he had already made up his mind. He said that he wanted to be the provider in a relationship and that he did not feel like one in ours. This role was important to him, tied closely to his sense of identity and self-worth. He confessed that my higher salary made him feel inadequate, overshadowed, and less of a man. He could not reconcile these feelings, no matter how much I tried to reassure him. He went on to say that there was no going back from this unless I quit my job and found another that paid substantially less, which is not going to happen. His statement was a harsh ultimatum that underscored the depth of his internal struggle. I was taken aback by the severity of his words. The idea of giving up the career I had worked so hard for, the financial independence I had achieved, was out of the question. It felt like he was asking me to sacrifice a part of myself to accommodate his insecurities, and I knew that was not a viable solution for either of us. The conversation left me feeling helpless and heartbroken. His refusal to seek therapy and his demand for me to change my career path made it clear that he could not see past his own fears and expectations. It was a devastating realization that our relationship might not survive this fundamental impasse. Well, long story short, we broke up. The decision was agonizing, but it became clear that we were at an impasse that we could not resolve. The breakup was heartbreaking for both of us, filled with tears, regret, and a deep sense of loss. It felt like the end of a chapter that had started with so much promise and love. His family is in disbelief. They had been very supportive of our relationship and had hoped that he would propose soon. They could not understand how things had unraveled so quickly, especially when they had seen us as a strong and loving couple. His parents and siblings, who had welcomed me into their lives and treated me like family, were shocked and saddened by the news. They reached out to me, expressing their disappointment and confusion, which made the situation even more painful. I have moved into an Airbnb for now. It was too hard to stay in the apartment we had shared, surrounded by memories of happier times. The temporary space provided a necessary refuge, a place to start picking up the pieces and figuring out my next steps. It is not easy. My company offered me a similar role in a different department. When the news came, it felt like a beacon of hope amid the chaos of my personal life. However, this role is based out of France, and there is a small decrease in pay. Despite the slight reduction in salary, the opportunity was too exciting to pass up. I have always dreamed about living in Europe, exploring new cultures, and experiencing life from a different perspective. I have accepted this offer. The prospect of starting anew in a vibrant and historic country like France was both thrilling and comforting. It gave me something positive to focus on during this challenging time. I have signed the relocation agreement, and the preparations for my move have begun in earnest. I will move there in the next 8 to 12 weeks. This time frame gives me just enough time to wrap up my current responsibilities, say my goodbyes, and mentally prepare for this significant life change. While the transition will undoubtedly be bittersweet, it is a chance for a fresh start and new adventures. It feels like a much-needed reset button, an opportunity to rebuild my life on my own terms, in a place I have always wanted to explore. In your opinion, what do you think about this story? Please leave your comment below to let me know.